Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the Medlock Post Radio Show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post Radio Show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. And here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Richard G. Medlock. This is a beautiful day in the United States of America. Why is this a beautiful day? Because I can and I will exercise my God-given rights protected by the Constitution of the United States. Today, I will exercise the right of free speech because I am a free thinker. Benjamin Franklin said, quote, "Freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved, and tyranny is erected on its ruins. An evil magistrate entrusted with power to punish for words would be armed with a weapon the most destructive and terrible," unquote. This is part of the tyranny we are observing in America today. Through government, through big tech, and other means, our voices are trying to be shut down. Further, he said, quote, "Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech, a thing terrible to public traitors. Freedom of speech is ever the symptom as well as the effect of a good government," unquote. This, too, we are witnessing an overthrowing of the liberty of a nation. And one more quote from Benjamin Franklin, quote, without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom, and no such thing as a public liberty. Without freedom of speech, which is the right of every man, as far as by it he does not hurt or control the right of another," unquote. I ask that you do not let this day go by without exercising your God-given rights to further the cause of freedom by standing up and speaking up for our great land, America. And be that free thinker that Benjamin Franklin referred to. And that's the Medlock Post monologue for August 18th, 2022. Today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, is the value of good education. And I think the guest that we're going to have on today is going to maybe give us some thoughts about how the freedom of thought could possibly have been taken away from some people in the United States. You say, wait a minute, freedom of thought. Everybody can think. That's a good question. And Dr. Larry Biddle and I just might throw that into part of the discussion. Now, Dr. Biddle was born in Denver, Colorado, grew up in Sacramento, California, attended St. Mary's College of California and the New York University Junior Year Abroad program at the University of Madrid, Spain. After receiving a BA from St. Mary's, he returned to Spain with Middlebury College Graduate School and earned a master's degree in Spanish. He has earned 50 hours beyond his master's degree. And probably more than that, just from experiences in life and books that he's read and that we've all read. In self-education, I love self-education, folks. He's been a lifelong educator and businessman. He was assistant director of Coastal Carolina College, which is now Coastal Carolina University. It's in Conway, South Carolina. And that was from 1966 to 1974. And he was only like 15 at the time that service started. And his leadership was instrumental in the growth of the institution. And as you're going to see and listen to him, this guy is well entrenched in education and the growth. After 8 years of headmaster at a private school, he became assistant principal of Conway High School. And that's where he developed a national prominence of a model school for his Renaissance program, a system of rewards and incentives for students, teachers, and administrators, which we will discuss today. He's been on boards, businessman, he's corporations, and on. Learning as leadership. Let's see, in 2005, graduate of the 4 mastery course conducted by Learning as Leadership in San Rafael, California, as a result of Coastal Carolina as at the request. I'm sorry, I'm running things together. At the request of Coastal Carolina, he served as chair of the inauguration of the new president in 2007. So on and on and on. We could keep reading, but you know what? It's time for you to hear the voice of Dr. Larry Biddle. Welcome, Larry. Dr. Biddle.
Thank you, sir. Honor to be here. Thank you so much, Richard. Certainly have enjoyed working and meeting with you and all of our other, I call them American Eagles, that are they're really beginning to soar, and it's a powerful thing. I wanted to begin with a couple of things that I've used extensively in my work. It's a thing I've used. It's in one of my slides called Core Values, and it's CORE. And it's a 5-star graphic that talks about culture, rituals, ceremonies, symbols, and traditions. And I think that's a way to frame everything that I have done over many years. I guess I should share with y'all, a 5th grade teacher told my parents I had drawn a picture of a baseball player, pitcher, and, they came home from the meeting with Sister Jacinto in Sacramento, and I said, "Did you see my picture?" Yeah, we thought your picture was great. Loved it. Yeah, it was really good. He said, "You know what Sister Jacinto said?" I said, "No, what?" She said, "You're going to be a teacher." And I thought, wow. 5th grade, there's Sister Jacinto, a Holy Cross sister from across the campus with Notre Dame. So, it's amazing how teachers, no one gets anywhere without a great teacher, period. And that'll never change. Not that all of them are great, but many of them, everyone has been influenced by a powerful teacher in their lives. I want to begin by something that I use also. It comes from Stephanie Pace Marshall. It's called Creating False Proxies for Deep Learning. And here's what it is. And when you all hear this, you're going to say, wow, wow, wow. Here's the first piece. Finishing a course and a textbook has come to mean achievement. Listening to a lecture has come to mean understanding. Getting a high score on a standardized test has come to mean proficiency. Credentialing has come to mean competence. So here's the final piece that summarizes those 4 points. Our learning environments and our schooling systems stifle natural learning and great thinking.
Amen. Amen. And I wish you'd send that to me. I'll post that on the blog.
You know,
and maybe
everything
even use
I
it.
have belongs to the community of Eagles, and so since you are one, you get it. No,
well, thank you.
Stuff, but I will do that.
Thank you.
You know, you're talking about thinking. You know, here's something else I have used as you know, when I hear people say things, it triggers stuff that I've used to help people understand. But in my career, which I will be 80 this month on the 28th of August, so I'm a bald eagle, and that's okay. That's a great symbol for America. And if we want to talk politics, I'll tell you how that's got to work in your life. But anyway, here's what I found: 5% of the people think. 15% of the people think they think. The other 80% would do anything but think. And that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why so many people are off track. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's held true since I heard it. I've got so much stuff that I've heard and incorporated and grabbed and said, oh, that's a save. You know, that I just got so much. I probably have, 10,000 slides that when I go to a community to work with them, you know, one of the things that I do is tell me where you are and where you want to go, and let me ask you some basic questions and so forth. And, you know, then I can custom design what I do based on where they are and where they need to get. No one, you don't go there and they say, well, we're doing everything. We're doing great. No, they all have some challenges, whatever it is, mostly people challenges, which is, that's the only thing we have to work with. I'm not into programs and ideas because they don't last. I've seen thousands of them in my career. That's why I based what I do on principles rather than programs and ideas.
And that's Dr.
That's powerful.
I'm gonna call you Dr. Biddle on the show, Doctor. And these are great points. And I think all of us, I'm the same way. I have all this stuff stored that I can go back to, and it just keeps building up and building up. I mean, I found some stuff the other day. I was looking back. And I said, oh, I forgot I had this. And it's great stuff. Yep. It's eternal stuff that the principle and the value that's being taught there will not go away. And those are the things that we have to grab hold of. And so, Doctor, if you will hold your thoughts for a minute, I want to go over some news items that have come up and do them real quick. And then we will get back.
Okay.
To Dr. Larry Biddle, and he can comment here as I go along as well. Today, August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment is ratified, giving women the right to vote. A lot of people refer to that as the Susan B. Anthony amendment because she pretty much spearheaded the thing. So that's the 19th Amendment today, 1920. So 102 years ago today, this thing was ratified. Now, there's some other things going on here, folks, that's a little bit disturbing because the Biden administration and Iran are sitting at the table trying to renew the Iran nuclear deal. And it looks like it's getting pretty close. But there are three main sticking points. And so here are the sticking points. And you decide, should the United States give in to these demands or requests in these negotiations with Iran? number one, we shouldn't be negotiating with them at all. So, that's truth. But anyway, here's one. Three main sticking points. Iran wants the Biden administration to remove its Islamic Revolutionary Corps from its designated terrorist list, which so far Washington seems unwilling to do. Now, that's interesting because the United States is willing to put parents that push back against school boards on terror lists as domestic terrorists, and they also have terrorists on the terror list. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if they give in to this demand. They probably will. They've surrendered everything else they're doing in the Middle East. The next one, it also wants a guarantee that the deal will be binding regardless of future U.S. administrations. Biden cannot legally guarantee that, and the reality remains that another administration could cancel any deal, as former President Donald Trump did. But knowing the Biden administration, they might try to stick that in there to see if they can get away with it. And then the third item is a long-running investigation by the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Association, into traces of uranium found at 3 of Iran's undeclared nuclear sites several years ago. Tehran wants it shut down, something the agency itself, as well as Western governments, are opposed to. Now, that's fine, but when the IAEA goes in there, they're only taken to places that Iran wants them to see. Now, the IAEA has also come out yesterday and this morning and said they are further along in refinement of plutonium than any country that wants to develop nuclear weapons. They're almost there, folks, if not already. All right, the next thing. Apple reportedly in talks to make Apple Watches and MacBooks in Vietnam. They're trying to move their production out of China. Well, they can't go to Taiwan because that's going to become part of China. But they're moving it to Vietnam. And Vietnam is becoming a large manufacturing place. Now, my question for Apple is, why don't you do this in the United States? Why aren't you bringing this production back to the United States, where your home headquarters are, and provide jobs for Americans here? The simple answer is, in Vietnam, it's a whole lot cheaper. They can get parts cheaper, and they can get labor cheaper. And it costs them a whole lot less to build a plant or buy a plant and get up and running. It would probably take them 5 to 8 years here to even get a plant going. Another one, MSNBC, ABC, CNN, last night realized on the air that the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't reduce inflation after all. Now they realize it after the bill is passed, that they pushed it, that they loved it, but now that they've looked at it, it's like, holy cow, we look like idiots. Well, you've been looking like idiots for a long time. Okay, the simple way to find the Medlock Post on Blog Talk Radio is go to blogtalkradio.com/the Medlock Post. blogtalkradio.com/the Medlock Post. That brings up my page with them, shows all my episodes there, the current ones and in long past. All right, and you can reach me at medlockpost@gmail.com. Also, climate crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, the temperatures in the last week or so have been below normal in our area. If this trend continues in the next 3, 4, or 5 months, we can see temperatures drop 30, 40, or even 50 degrees from where they are today. It's possible that in the mornings there can be ice covering the ground and mini glaciers on rooftops of homes and buildings. Then as the ice and mini glaciers melt during the day, the runoff could flood small creeks and streams. Get your sandbags ready for this climate crisis in the next few months. All right, Dr. Biddle, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Who has the full responsibility of a child's education? The parents or the state?
Well, I'm a member of Seth Godin. I would strongly recommend that y'all tune in to Seth Godin. He's probably the most sought after business speaker in the entire world. Does an amazing thing. Whatever he started his blog, I found out about him many years ago. Seth is really an amazing individual. He's certainly an American Eagle, in my opinion. And, one of the things that he and I've written like 19 articles in the Scene magazine, which will be my second book. And then the third one is going to be what we call the Triptych Solutions for Education and Business in the country. And one of the things that Seth and I have discussed over about a year is that he said, you got to narrow down the audience. Who are you really, zeroing in on? And I said, well, Seth, in my opinion, there's four elements that we have to zero in on. It can't be divided. And here they are. Number one, parents. Because without parents, you don't have any children. So parents.
You mean parents of opposite sex?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
What I always explain when I discuss eagleship is, two male eagles cannot lay eggs, two females cannot lay eggs. So how did the creator set that up eons ago? It's male and female. That's the way it is. So sorry, if you want to go against that, then you miss the creator. But anyhow, so parents. Okay, so then there comes the children. Well, the children are the students. I call them learners. And so without parents, you don't have students. And then without the learning side of it is what I call staffley. I've used that word for many years, probably since 1984, when I started all this thinking in new ways. And then the other piece is community. I said, you cannot. That's the entity. It's parents, students, community, which is exactly how we implemented everything we did when we began these 10 essential business principles. And the reason, Richard, we use principles is because let's take gravity, okay? Gravity is a principle, all right? It's not a program. You don't say, well, I guess gravity's going away. No, it's not. Gravity can be understood by NASA and kindergartners. No kindergartner thinks that when you hold the book up and you drop it, that it's going up. So that's why I based everything that I have done my entire career and what our two new books coming out will be about is all about principles, first and foremost. And so if you take any one, think of it as a car with four wheels. Well, which wheel do you want to take off the car? You want to take off the parent wheel, the student wheel, the teacher wheel, the community's wheel? No. I've helped schools across the nation for many years, 25 years, as I spoke in every state twice, including Hawaii and Alaska, and I'm bilingual, so, I've done this in Latin America and Europe and everywhere. But, here's the thing for us to zero in on. The important piece is, in terms of community, is educational foundations. As someone that's, worked in colleges and been a college president at age 25 at Coastal Carolina, I've started, probably 2,000-3,000 foundations. I don't go anywhere that I don't speak about the power of a foundation, 501c3. Too many high schools realize, or what they think is, you need cookie dough to raise money. No, you don't. We don't use cookie dough and wrapping paper and world's finest chocolate and all that stuff. No. start a 501c3 educational foundation. And now you got something that'll last forever. We had the second foundation in South Carolina in 1983, I believe it was. We had heard that Spring Valley High School in the Columbia area had one. We went up there and looked at it. We pulled together some people in our community, leaders. I call them movers and shakers. Eagles is what they really are. And, we started a 501c3 on purpose. It's made all the difference. And, what I've learned is cookie dough in the trunk of your car in the South during the summer probably melts. Now you can't even sell it, but you got to pay for it. So it's a train wreck.
Well, it's like cookies, chocolate cookies, trying to sell chocolate cookies, and it's warm outside. Now, so, when we look at the responsibility, and when you and I were growing up, our parents were involved in our education. My mother was a president of the PTA, went to the national conventions in Chicago, etc. So they were there. Another thing that you mentioned is this synergy, this cooperation between those four things that you mentioned. Well, there's an article out. Teachers Union runs ad calling conservative parents extremist, and this is New York chapter of the nation's largest teachers union, the National Education Association, and they published an ad labeling parents who speak out at school board meetings against critical race theory and gender identification as extremist. Now, let's see. They deserve, the association published 15-second commercial discussing how New Jersey citizens should agree that students deserve a world-class education that should be separate from politics, and the video cuts to black and white photos of people yelling in crowd meetings with headlines of articles describing parent protest at school board meetings as extremists. Quote from the article: "When extremists start attacking our schools, that's not who we are. People who only want to fight to score political points should take that somewhere else." Well, isn't this the school boards attacking the schools? Isn't it just the reverse here, that the parents found out during the pandemic what their kids are being taught, and they're standing up protecting their children? So that synergy has been lost a little bit in all of this, and some principles and values have gone out the window. So, Larry, what can be done about something like this other than parents continuing to stand up, fight against the school boards, and replace school boards?
Well, I've worked on boards. I don't know how many boards I've been on, probably 25 in my career, maybe more, a lot. I found out if you'll volunteer, they'll take you. And, they say, well, gee, you did this over here. Can we do this over there? Here's the thing. Here's the way I look at it. This morning, Seth Godin's blog said the title of it was Talk/Not Talk. And, and I saw that, and of course I'm on his blog at Horry Eagle. That's Horry County, Horry Eagle. And so you can read that, if you go to Seth's blog and then at Horry Eagle, that's me. You can get that. But, that's what's happened to us. And, I learned, here's something I did in Horry County. I was put on there were like 3 groups that the school system was talking about to revisit, and where are we and where do we want to go and all those good things. And one of the things that the group I guess I was leading it, or I was one of the main, people helping with it all. I said, here's what I want to do. I want to eliminate the word district from the title of our schools. Because if anyone knows that you're on your way leaving the building to go to the district office, you must be in trouble. And the answer to that is, well, yeah, the superintendent wants to see you at the district office. So-and-so wants to see you at the district office. Personnel wants to see you at the district office. I said, we don't need the word district. It's an obstacle. It's in the way. It's a wall. Stop it. Well, today, it's called Horry County Schools, period. It's no district on it. We took it off. And you would not believe the number of educators that I have spoken with over the years, probably 30, or I guess since 84, that I said, well, I don't know why you have district. What? Oh, my God. Oh. I said, hey, it's an obstacle. It's a wall. Don't do it.
Well, and I've noticed, especially in our state, I know our county used to be Greenville County School District, and now it's just Greenville School District. And then they changed it to Greenville County Schools years ago. And I don't know if it helped anything, but the name gave it a better tone. The attack from when we look at critical race theory, and Mark Twain said this about, he said in the falsehood of theory, or let's see, I thought I had it right here. Let me read this other one by Mark Twain, then I'll think of the other one. He said, quote, God made the idiot for practice, and then he made the school board, unquote. So even back then with Mark Twain, I guess school boards were controversial. It's crazy.
I love it. That's strong.
Yeah. But anyway, when we look at critical race theory, that word theory sticks out. And in the face of theory, I'll get it. I thought I had it right here written down somewhere, and I'm trying to remember it. But he's saying with theory, how does theory stand up in the face of facts? And I remember 2 years ago, January of 2020, and I was meeting with a large nonprofit here, and they had a lot of people in there, and a group of churches came in and started ranting and raving that they needed to go into all the white churches and teach us about critical race theory, that whites don't understand it. So, me, I had to speak up, and I said, could you explain to us here today what critical race theory is? And they just shut down. Well, we don't have time today. You're just trying to cause trouble. You're we don't know you. We're not going to talk to you about that. They can't explain it. It's just something that they've shoved into the school system to what I brought up earlier is to indoctrinate, to take away that freedom of thought. So that
yes.
when you put wrong information into a skull, that their thought process starts to diminish, that they can't understand at some point the difference between right and wrong, black and white. And I'm not referring to that as color, folks. I'm referring to that as a right and a wrong and a black and a white, because there's a gray area in between sometimes. So this nation, through the education system, which was vital to the founding fathers, and we'll get to that in a second, but they have taken an education system and turned it into an indoctrination system. Now, folks, don't get me wrong. There are great teachers out there, and I promise you they are struggling to be great teachers in this system that is shoved on their shoulders. And I know a lot of those great teachers, and they do succeed. They reach out to the youth and help them and become self-reliant and self-efficient. But the founding fathers believed that education was vital to developing a religious and a moral society. Now, Thomas Jefferson said this, and Larry's heard me say this before, quote, "I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of the society but the people themselves." He's talking about we the people here. "And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power." So education, let's get the truth out here. Let's help you understand the truth. So Larry, continue with that thought on what you have at this point from what I just said.
Well, yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, here's one of the things. My education, as you know, I was kicked out of first grade in Sacramento, California, so I ended up in Catholic school. And our Catholic school, Immaculate Conception, which was not far from our house, we had what I call the fabric of America in that school. And this is the way I explain politics, all right, by starting and letting people know what I am. Everybody says, "Well, what are you?" I said, "Well, let me tell you what I am. I'm a registered Republican with a Democrat philosophy who votes independently as an American eagle. And if you think about the colors of the American eagle, it gives you an insight into the fabric of our nation. The American eagle is black, brown, red, white, and yellow. That's who we are. And I had at our elementary school black, brown, red, white, and yellow, period. And I grew up with that. And when I went to Bishop Armstrong, I went to Christian Brothers High School, and then Bishop Armstrong, where I was student body president in my senior year. And when I went to St. Mary's College, which is, I did junior year abroad. St. Mary's College had all of those colors. And then I went to Spain, and then I ended up in Middlebury, and on and on and on. And so if you look at the reality of the whole piece, there's not a better symbol than the American eagle for this nation, period. We forget that. And if you talk about critical race theory, the first thing that shows up to me is the word theory. Well, if it's only a theory, I'm not going to put too much faith in it because it's only a theory. My education, and I got to share this with the audience, I started studying the philosophy in high school. St. Mary's College of California, to graduate, you have 8 semesters of the great books, period. And you start with the Greeks and Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, etc. And it goes all the way through to the latest and greatest. And then I end up, going to Spain and study under I had him as a junior at NYU Spain, and I had him as a graduate professor at NYU Spain. His name was Julian Marias. Julian Marias is a philosopher. Okay, he spoke 9 languages, including Greek. The guy was a genius. I still have, Richard, the notes that I took in his classes. I'm a voracious note taker because of what I found, if you want to be successful in anything, the better your notes, the better you do. Really simple.
Well,
People think they're going to remember something. No.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talk about his notes and how valuable they are to you. Let me ask you this. Would those notes be valuable to others? Is it something that you could share? I don't know if your notes are in Spanish or English or Greek or Bavarian or whatever, but maybe that's something
they're in Spanish. Yeah, they're in Spanish.
That doesn't help me. That doesn't
one of
help
the things
me
that happens to you. one of the things that happens to you when you go study in a foreign country and everything is pretty much 24/7 language, you told students, and I've had lots of people, go to Europe under my mentorship on purpose. I said, you will begin to realize you are fluent after you're there. You might be there 6 weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever it is. When you start dreaming in the target language of Spanish or Portuguese or whatever language you're in, you're now becoming fluent because you're thinking and dreaming in the language.
Yeah, that's
Otherwise,
true, and a lot of people will support that, and that spend time over there. Taking classes in high school is great, but until you have to put it to practical use, it's there, but it's not as valuable as when you use it. Now,
that's right.
Let me read this quote from Ayn Rand. Quote, "The only purpose of education is to teach a student how to live his life by developing his mind and equipping him to deal with reality. The training is theoretical, i.e. conceptual. He has to be taught to think, to understand, and to prove." Unquote. Now, to me, that is critical thinking. You have something put in front of you. You find out a way, you ask questions, how to understand it, and then you apply it to your lives, to what's going on. You take that knowledge that you have just gained, that you have an understanding of now, and that understanding will grow as you apply it in your life. And I have a phrase that I use in my training through the years and teaching is, once learning takes place, behavior changes, because you're improving yourself and you apply those improvements. And when we look at, let me go back and also say, I did a 3-part series on education in America as episodes 27, 28, and 29. And I would encourage everyone to go back to blogtalkradio.com/the Medlock Post and go back and listen to 27, 28, and 29, those episodes. I would also encourage you to go all the way back to episode 1 when we started this, because we are educational. We are not here just to spout off and give our opinions about things, but we want to bring truth out. We want you to understand the Constitution. And matter of fact, I found a recording from September 17th, 2015. Well, I've had them. I just went back. I pulled it up and I was listening to it from my previous radio show, and I talked about the Constitution, and I think I'm going to pull that out and do it here on the program. So we try to base things on the rule of law. In episodes 2 and 3, talked about the rule of law versus ruler's law, which we are seeing happen in front of our faces today in America. So, Larry, your thoughts about Ayn Rand's quote, to think, to understand, and to prove. How does that help us in education today?
Well, it's immense. As you were saying that, I thought about what I would, someone said, "What did you teach?" I said, "I taught students Spanish." And I said, when they came to the first class, normally after Labor Day, which made a lot of sense. We've taken August away from our children and families. Makes no sense. I mean, our schools down here in Horry County started on Monday this week.
Yeah, ours did.
But anyway,
some in South Carolina started the first week of August.
Yeah, I'm sure, and those may be the year-round things, but whatever. But here's the key. I told the students, they came into the class. I said, what you need to do is bring a notebook tomorrow, period. If you have one today, if you don't have one, that's fine. But tomorrow we're gonna do it, because normally the first day I think was a half a day anyway, whatever. because they're working on bus routes and all that stuff. I said, bring a notebook and bring a Frito. They said, you mean like a corn chip? I said, yeah, like a corn chip. Oh, okay. So bring a notebook, bring something to write with. And they said, when do we get our textbooks? I said, well, you're not going to get your textbooks for a week. You don't even know how to study a foreign language. You haven't had one. I mean, how long have you been studying American? I don't call it English because it's American. That's what we have our own language, believe it or not. After 250 years, duh. And so I said, oh, okay. So they did that, right? And it was blowing their minds, that they had this Frito. I said, I want to share something with you that is a major break for learning. And it's exactly what Ayn Rand is talking about, in my opinion, because it's called 83, 11, 3.5, 1.5, 1. It's those percentages, okay? That was a breakthrough probably 50 years ago. And I've never failed to teach that wherever I go. It's always part of what we're going to do, to teach that system, because it's the way you internalize learning, okay? So I said, look, take the Frito and I'm going to put it on the board. Write this down in a column, 83, 11, 3.5, 1.5, and 1. 83% of what you see, you retain. I said, so write that down. That's what you see. That's eyes, right? We're going to talk about the 5 senses. Next, actually, there's a 6th one that I added, but I'll tell you that one too. And so the next thing is 11% of what you hear. Okay, so if I only say something and you hear it, but you don't write it down, that's only 11%. This is going to torpedo your life learning a foreign language. It won't work for you. Then, so we got 83, 11. Then we got 3.5, 1.5, and 1. And I'd say, okay, what senses are left? So they all start, we start discussing. I said, what's left? And they say, well, okay. There's smell, and there's touch, and there's what's the other sense? Taste. Smell, touch, and taste. I said, okay. So which is stronger of those? I said, let me give you a clue. Put down 3.5, and let me ask you how the blind read. And they say, oh, yeah, touch. I said, I know. Touch is a powerful sense. It doesn't take you long to look at a hot horseshoe out of a pit, does it? No.
Nope.
You touch that thing, and you're going to put it back fast. You're going to get burned, as a matter of fact. So I said, now we got a problem of what's next. So we got 2 left, y'all. And so what is it going to be? Which one goes where? I said, let me ask you this question. What if we blindfolded everyone in the class? And I told you I was going to feed you some ice cream. Okay, you're blindfolded. And under your nose, I put chocolate, but I feed you vanilla. What does it taste like? And the answer is, it tastes like chocolate, because that's how France did the perfume industry. They based an entire industry on smell. And it's a big industry, and now it's everywhere. And it's not just France in the perfume industry. It's in all kind of people are in the perfume industry.
Well, it's like when you go to a restaurant. It's like when you go to a restaurant.
You go by the restaurant, and this sizzling steak wafts out into the sidewalk. We're going here.
We're going here, and they bring it out, and it's sizzling, and you cut into it, and you take that first bite, and you still have that smell, and then you have that sense of taste, and it becomes exotic. Oh man, this is great.
It does. Exotic is a great term. You're right. I love that word. I'm going to steal that from you today. I'm going to give you credit the first time I use it. After that, it's mine. That's what we do. That's how we do it.
That chocolate under the nose and vanilla ice cream is exotic. So we can go from there.
And then one other piece, is those experiences go into your heart, which is where you got to understand the power of who you can become. I mean, because it takes heart to do anything. So it all kind of works together in a major way, except we've never taught it to people. So I said, okay, now take the Frito, everybody, put it in your mouth and chew it and feel the crunchy corn and so forth. And by the way, frito is a Spanish word meaning fried. Oh, okay. I said, say the word frito, 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 frito. Those kids, I see them. I'm getting ready to do in a month, less than a month now, a reunion of my 30th year class, Conway High School. I had them for 4 years. I put this whole concept to them. Everything we do, these 10 principles, they lived it. And they will still say to me when I see them, hey, the frito. I'll never forget the frito. I know.
Well, it's those experiences, this what I call the self-education aspect of our lives. And when we look at many great people, George Washington and a lot of the founding fathers were self-educated. And when we take advantage of all of our situations, when I was taking my first semester of business law in college, and this was at Arizona State. I'm from the South, so I go out there and I would understand this because I grew up in segregation, which was still going on when I went to college, even out there. Well, most of those people out there were from the West. They had no clue what segregation was. So
you're right.
We came into class about the middle of the semester, and he says, okay, I want every blonde person to go exchange. We had a terrorist class. Everybody on the back row that's not blonde, come forward. Everybody that's blonde, go sit on the back row. Everybody with blue eyes, go to the back and exchange seats with someone that's not blue-eyed. I was blue-eyed, so at least in one eye. I had a blue eye and a brown eye, so I half qualified. So I knew exactly where he was going with this. Nobody else, everybody was looking at each other like, what's he doing? So we went back. There were probably 15 of us out of the class. And we have a caller coming in. We'll bring him on in a minute. I know who it is. But so here are the rules to prove segregation. And he says for the next 2 weeks, you can only come in this building, and it was a 4-story building, and we were on like the 3rd floor. You can only come in the one door on the back side. It was probably the north or west side or something like that. You can only enter and exit the building in that door. You have to sit here. You cannot use the elevator. You have to come up the stairs. And you can only use the restroom on the 4th floor. So he painted this picture and these restrictions for us to go by for 2 weeks. Well, after class, those of us that were in the back, they're all sitting there going, what is he doing to us? I says, he's teaching you about segregation. You're going to live it.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And I had I was a water safety instructor, and I was a good water safety instructor. And we were told we had this big Olympic-sized swimming pool at the university. It was indoor, and I was the assistant head lifeguard. So the coach comes in and says, next week we're going to have a students come in here from the blind and deaf school, and we're going to teach them how to swim. And we're all just kind of, okay, right. He says, so we're going to do this. So he took all of us that were going to be teaching, and we were blindfolded and put up against the wall at a certain point at the pool. And he says, you need to learn your way around this pool blindfolded so you can understand what's going through the minds of those that you're teaching, because they can't see either. And they need to learn their way around the pool. So this is using your senses to increase your ability to do things. And these
That's
are
right.
great examples of what we're talking about. And it helps us to become more aware of what's going on, not only in our environment, but also in our society as well. So let me bring on
absolutely.
this other caller, Dr. Biddle. He might be a little bit of a stranger to you. I'm not sure. Hello. Could you please identify yourself, caller?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want you to know that I'm sitting in the back row, the very back row. My eyes are closed. I'm blindfolded, but I'm white-haired, old, and blue-eyed, okay? So that's the qualifications. I just want you to know that. What a great
do you have your corn chip with you?
Yes, indeed. I did. I mean, great show. Dr. Biddle, Tom Heron, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning, sir. I'm phenomenal. How are you? Love you.
I'm good. I've been listening as much as I could. I've also got some other stuff planned that I'm going to probably be seeing you in a little while, but I just love this show, and I had to call in. This is a really short call because you don't need to hear what Tom Heron has to say about education. You're talking to two guys who are really good at this stuff. But I'll tell you what you do want to hear, and that is what I base all of Up With America on, and that is what did the founders say and think about each important issue today. And, of course, as those of you who are familiar with Up With America know, and as Dr. Biddle and Richard know, education is at the very top of our priority list, bottom line. So I'm just going to give you 3 quotes, if you don't mind. I think it's worth listening. The first one is from James Madison, who said, "A diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty." A diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. The second one is Thomas Jefferson, who said, "The role of education in America is to give every citizen the information that he needs to understand his duties and to his neighbors and to his country and to know his rights." And that is so missing, isn't it? Just amazing.
Totally.
Yeah. But maybe the most important that has to do with where we are today in this crazy mixed up world that we're living in. And don't listen, when you guys get off the air today, don't turn on the news. It's just more nonsense. Truly more nonsense. Listen, Thomas Jefferson, who is, as I have frequently stated, if I could choose just one living human being from the history of mankind other than Jesus to have a dinner with, it would be Thomas Jefferson. And I think I said, I probably didn't say it on your show, Richard, but I'll never forget what JFK said. President Kennedy said at a dinner that he was holding in 1962 for all of the Nobel Prize winners on the planet, all of them gathered in the White House having a dinner in their honor. And he gave the toast. He stood up, raised his glass, and he said, "I know of no time in the history of this great building in which more intelligence was gathered in one room than with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined here alone."
Oh, absolutely.
So here's
the man was amazing. These founding fathers were so amazing in their intelligence and in their inspiration and sitting down and collaborating with each other to achieve what they did. And that's what's missing in the world today. Tom, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, Richard, you're absolutely right. Listen, we all 3 of us and a whole lot of other people understand that there is no question in our minds whatsoever that it was divine providence that put all those people here on this at the same time in the same place on the same planet. No doubt about it whatsoever. That's what happened. Today I call it a God thing, but the bottom line is that was divine providence. So I can't stay long, so I want to leave you with a quote that I have to admit to you I had only recently learned, as I've been learning a lot of stuff from Dr. Biddle about education. I found this quote from Thomas Jefferson that I think is just bingo. Ready? It says, "Enlighten the people generally, and tyranny and oppressions of body and mind will vanish like evil spirits vanish at the dawn of the day." How about that one? Enlighten the people generally, and tyranny and oppressions of body and mind will vanish like evil spirits at the dawn of the day. Thomas Jefferson. We got evil spirits in both ways.
When we study the founding fathers, which is not being done in schools today, we understand and we put those things in our lives, the teachings of these great men, eternal teachings. They weren't just for their time, and they're for now, forever. And this is what we're trying to help everybody understand. There's another quote, and I can't remember who said it, but basically he was saying, if we withhold information from a society, then tyranny will take hold.
Bingo.
Going back to what Thomas Jefferson was saying, this education is how you solve the problems. It is the key to the society that we want to have, which is a religious and moral society.
Amen. And so my parting shot, and I hate to do this to you, but my parting shot has to be this. First of all, two things. One, folks, all you listeners out there, you're listening to a really quality program that you're learning a lot. I hate it when I miss one, but the fortunate thing is you can always go online and hear. But the bottom line here is that we are in a situation right now. I want everybody to understand, especially parents, if you think you're going to go to your school board meeting or to your classrooms or to your principal's office, and there's going to be a file folder there named CR Critical Race Theory, and there are going to be books with critical race theory labeled that way and stamped on the middle of the pages. It doesn't work that way. Critical race theory is the name that we've given to a nightmare that's taking place in front of our children, and it's infecting their lives, and it's impacting the entire future of this country. So don't look for the words critical race theory. Look for the problem itself. Study what critical race theory is. There's lots of ways to do that. So I would say that's the number one thing. And then the second thing is what Up With America is doing this fall, especially doing this fall, and what you guys are doing right now all the time. And there's nobody better at it than Larry Biddle, and that is that we are turning all of our talk into action, because it's time for action, folks. We have to take action right now today. Whatever you can do out there to get involved with your community, with your schools, or whatever it is, please do that, because it is actions. Actions speak louder than words at this point. We found everything on our words, but it's the actions that we take that are so important. And that's all I've got to say this morning, guys. Love.
All right. You missed my opening monologue. You'll have to go back and listen to it.
I will.
So let me give you,
sure.
Before you leave, Tom, let me give you one more quote. And I know people out there going, God, they're throwing all this stuff out here. John Taylor, who was a religious leader, said, quote, "There are wolves among us in sheep's clothing, ready to lead astray our little ones. Wolves do not devour old sheep when there are young ones around," unquote. And that is what's happening today. This critical race theory, we don't see it on the outside, like Tom was talking about. There's not a book that said critical race theory, read me. It is embedded in math books, in English books and other things, and thrown out there. It's like cancer, folks. You don't see it from the outside. Somebody might look just healthy as can be, but there is a cancer in their body that is destroying them. And that is what critical race theory and diversity and equity, inclusion, and all of that is about. It's a cancer within that is destroying the whole society, or attempting to. And we need to start treating that cancer immediately.
Oh, amen. And let me just yield the floor back to both of you. Folks, stay tuned. Listen to all this great knowledge. I will see both of you soon and talk to you, both of you soon, too. Thank you for just the opportunity to just appear for a minute or two.
All right. Thank you, Tom, and have a good day.
Thank you, Tom. Have a phenomenal day. No, you will.
You too, the same. All right. Bye-bye.
All righty. Dr. Biddle, I got to get used to saying that. I've always called you Larry, so
well, that's fine,
I love
too.
it.
I've been called a lot of things. Don't worry.
Just don't forget to call me for dinner, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And I can tell you, when I've been to Myrtle Beach, Dr. Biddle is a gracious host, and I just love him for it. All right, let's get into your 10 essential principles transforming schools since 1984. Now, It's interesting that you spell principles with an X in place of a C, and
Yes.
that is to represent 10. I don't know if there's another representation there, but the first one. See, I can figure things out, folks. Sometimes I have a wave of genius. Number one is excellence for stakeholders, promoting standards of excellence in achievement, improvement for all participants, not just the top few. Now, this is interesting that you use the word stakeholders instead of shareholders. Why the difference? Yes. Why the word stakeholders, Dr. Biddle?
Well, I didn't put it in here, but it comes later on when in the other principles. That principle, that X, if you'll cross your arms and put 2 thumbs up, the X on my business card and the X in principles means where opportunity and preparedness meet.
Oh, okay.
So that's what it stands for. Yeah, it's a Roman numeral X, stands for that. But it also means, and I've begun to teach people to cross your arms in front of you on your chest, make an X, and then put 2 thumbs up. And so that's the latest and greatest in Biddlemania, I guess I call it, or people call it. But that's what that is. And the stakeholders.
I just did that. Cross my eye. I poked myself in the eye with my thumb. So.
I know. Yeah, be careful. Keep it under your chin. Don't stick yourself in the eye. Yeah, Stakeholders is I didn't put it in here. There's 2 key things in this first principle. One is excellence in achievement and improvement. See, we haven't focused on improvement. We focused on achievement. Well, that's kind of top few driven. And, honor rolls are for A, B students. Well, what about the rest of the kids? That's 80% of the kids you've left out. So I said, look, there's no difference between improvement and achievement. The stakeholders are parents, students or learners, faculty, and community. Because when you do what we do, when you take these principles and you apply them in your community, everybody gets aboard the team. Everybody becomes eagle-driven. Everybody learns to soar. And it's huge. I found that if I can move a student up every quarter, pretty soon they're in C's or better. And then they get to A and B. I remember a mom calling me saying, Dr. Bill, I can't believe that my daughter, who was flunking out in her senior year, and she didn't care about anything, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, because of what you said to her, talked to her, what you promoted on that campus, every quarter she started moving up. I said, you don't have to jump across the Grand Canyon. And all of a sudden, she erased 2 F's, and then she got she got a couple of C's, and then she got an A in something she really loved, might have been music. And all of a sudden, by her senior year, she had almost a 3.0. But I moved her quarter by quarter.
And going with that is what I've taught when I train instructors and teachers, is to make clear your expectations of the students. And if they're expected to do things, if it's clear to them, but also make clear what is the expectations from the teacher. What do the students want from the teacher? And that's a good conversation to have in the first few days of a school year or a quarter or something like that. And you develop this line of communication. But yes, it goes back when all of a sudden they took 2 F's up to a C, they start getting self-improvement, but also self-esteem, self-confidence that, you know what, I can do this. And they keep continuing, and they're being encouraged, they're being helped, and they're happy for it, instead of, okay, you showed up for a soccer match, and you're here, and you really didn't play anything, and you really don't come to practice a lot, but you know what? Here's a trophy. Thank you for coming. Go home. That is not an expectation. An expectation.
No, that doesn't work. We've already gone down that road, and it's a wreck.
expectation is improvement, and achievement. And just because you learned enough to pass a test does not qualify for those two things.
That's right. Yep, you're right. Well, and it reminds me too. Think about where the top few thing came from. The top few thing came from colleges and universities, because the colleges and the universities don't accept anybody who comes. They accept the top few.
And charge them an arm and a leg.
Oh, for sure. Tuition is out of control. I think Penn State had the highest tuition in the country a few years back, and they found out when they did the research that Penn State thought because we increased tuition, it must be great. Well, wait a minute. In the business world, we better look at whether or not we're getting any results with everybody who comes, and not just whatever, just for nothing tuition. That's a faulty argument. See, this is where the Greeks help us, and this has been all through my life, and I was a high school student when I got hold of this, but the logic and philosophy are critical in understanding anything. That's what the founding fathers had. They studied the Greeks, and they knew logic and philosophy. Philosophy is a way of life and living and success and satisfaction.
They came to the understanding of what was good philosophy and what was bad philosophy. They found out from Plato, we don't want to do it that way. They found out from Cicero, we want to do it that way. They found out from Montesquieu and from other philosophers the best way to do things. And then all of a sudden, Adam Smith comes along with a great philosophy on an education or an economic system, and they said, bingo. I don't know if they said bingo, but they said, this is it. Because all of their other information and their studies and the steps they had already taken to put together a country based on freedom and releasing the human spirit to achieve. And that's what it's all about. Now, here's another quote by Peter Brahm. Quote, education makes a people easy to lead but difficult to drive, easy to govern but impossible to enslave. Unquote. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're talking about. This is why we're having these discussions on the Medlock Post. This is episode 40, The Value of Good Education. And we want to put information out there for you to think about, to study about, to reach out to people, have discussions about, and say, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Hundreds and millions or millions of parents in the United States today have decided education in America stinks and we don't want anything to do with it until it changes. And it's because of principles, the 10 essential principles that Dr. Biddle came up with in 1984 and has been working successfully ever since. And we're not going to get to all 10, but let me go to number 3, Dr. Biddle. Let's skip to number 3. Number 2 is guarantee, but I want to skip to number 3 because it's vital here in everything we do in life. Accountability, responsible for tracking of engagement and progress to show academic improvement in attendance, behavior, grades, and other educational benchmarks. Address that, please. Accountability.
Yeah. One of the things we said, and this was really the mantra that drove everything we did, kind of the preamble, let's call it a preamble. We said, look, what we're doing at Conway High School from now on, by the way, we were recognized by the U.S. Department of Education as an outstanding high school in the country. They never saw a school do what we were doing in the U.S. Department of Education. I said, well, that's your problem. We'll do it anyway. I got to get more results with more kids. That's simple. And we celebrating, the whole community. But, and the key to that is that we said, look, folks, this is what we're doing at Conway High School. We are building strong, self-reliant, self-educating young citizens for life from now on.
Did you hear the word self-educating in there, folks? Self-educating. Go ahead, Dr. Biddle.
Yeah, it's essential. You know, why would I stop learning? I mean, I've been doing it since I was kicked out of first grade. And actually before that, you know, because I was born in Denver. So I learned about snow early.
Real early.
Can't go out in the winter without boots on and a coat and a hat. So, yeah, and accountability, you know, accountability is driven by goals and quantitative measure and consequences. That's what drives it. Now, that's a business term that educators really, you know, they haven't thought like business. Too many educators have thought business was a dirty word. Never. We're in the most important business in town for the future of the nation. Then why don't we think like business, act like business, and use business principles? Because the government principles and the union principles do not work. That's why I left them in 84.
Thank you for bringing that up, that we need to put this together, that it is a principle to live by and is being ignored. And in some ways, I also think that some teachers have become like politicians. They're going to do what they need to do just to protect their job. And, okay, the school wants us to do this. Here's the mantra that we follow, the template that we follow, and I'll just go right along. I'll keep my job, and if the kids learn something, that's fine. If not, we'll move on. But we've got to look at the future. When you said that education is the most valuable business in America, and it is, and the founding fathers recognized it as that's what it is, and our children, our grandchildren, will be leading the future. We have to give it over to them at some time, and I can look at some of my scouts that became Eagle Scouts, and even those that didn't become Eagle Scouts, the principles and values they learned, those that I taught in school, adults that I taught in training classes that applied those principles became better leaders, became better citizens, became better parents. And that's what it's all about, because all of a sudden that self-education kicks in. And I remember my mother was a ferocious reader. And my brother and I, because of her, became ferocious readers. And if you're not a reader, take up the habit, folks. There's some great books out there to go start with and become a ferocious reader. Like Tom said, turn off the news. All right. Any more on accountability?
My wife, my wife Jenny's a voracious reader, and you don't even need the books anymore. She has a Kindle, must have 500 books in it.
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
Yeah, on your phone too. I mean, it's amazing now. I'm sitting in our library here in Conway, which is full of books. I mean, books are all over this house. They're all over our house in Merle's Inlet. We have books everywhere. But still today, I mean, everything's accessible big time, and it's powerful stuff. You know, one of the things that I've taught, life, you really have. You can get a job. It's what is the niche quadrant is what I call it. The niche quadrant, which is the job system, and I put a circle around that with an E in the middle, and that's employee. But a job is really a jackass of the boss, J-O-B, and a boss spelled backwards is a double S-O-B. Not all jobs have a boss, but it seems like that's their system, the bossing system. I've never been a boss. Don't call me a boss. I don't do boss.
No, don't do
then
that.
Then below that is S-E, which is self-employed, no circle. I'm self-employed. I gave up all my jobs. They ruined my income and my life and stole my time. And, those of you who haven't figured that out, you better figure it out fast because it's critical. So that's that quadrant, which is unlimited, Then the next quadrant is a business owner. And when I put it up on the board or put it up on the screen, it's BO. And I say that's sort of body odor, but it's a business owner. And I have an arrow with 2 points up and down. And I say, the business, you make it and you may fail and you learn from it. You turn around, you come back. And that's all businesses fail their way to success. That's simple. And if you hadn't failed, you ain't doing nothing. It's okay, but it's not permanent, And then the last thing I put is a big I, a capital I. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it stands for investment. This is where money works for you. You don't work for money like in a job. And I said, when you invest, we have invested in many companies, etc. And Ginny tells the Burroughs family of companies, there's about 5 companies, that the reason she married me is so the family tree would fork. Because I was a Westerner that she met on her way to Europe in Spain and New York Harbor. So, and they don't say anything because it's probably true. But yeah, I mean, it's an essential piece, and all of that is vital to understand. And I realize that, and as we approach football season in the South and all over the country, we ought to come into the 4 images, which are number 1, traditions, number 2, extracurricular activities, then athletics, then academic.
Yeah, that's number 4.
No academic image.
Yeah, that's number 4 on his 10 essential principles.
Yeah, we had no academic image. We had a football image, a tiger, 39. That's 60 years before Clemson in 1889. So I talked to Clemson people. I said, we were the original Tigers. You probably hadn't heard of it, but that's the way it works. It was the only school in Horry County in 1839, period. There weren't any schools. Horry County was a vast wilderness. I mean, it wasn't a desert. It was swamps and rivers. So anyway,
and
we're going to have
the ocean,
number 1. I put a tiger paw on it.
And the ocean came up to Conway then, and now it's gone out, and that's why they created Myrtle Beach. And I'm just kidding, folks.
That's right. Yeah, well, our family company's founded Myrtle Beach. That's simple, but there was nothing. I mean, Conway was founded in 1732 by the British. Myrtle Beach was made a city in 1938, so over 200 years later. There was nothing in Myrtle Beach. It was sea, sand, oats, and kudzu. That's the way it was. Okay, whatever.
All right.
But yeah, and so we created this academic image. It still hangs in the Commons at Conway High School. Next one is the VTW, which is my term, visible, tangible, walk-aroundable. You could always spot an athlete, but you could never spot a scholar or somebody moving up. That's why I created far beyond plaques and certificates. I hate plaques and certificates. You want to make it visible, tangible, walk-aroundable. We created honor cards at many levels, all levels.
When I look at that, I was going to bring this up on the VTW. It's number 5 here, visible, tangible, and walk-aroundable. I also look at visible as having a vision. People need to create a vision of where they're going and where they want to be, whether it's next week, next year, whatever it is. You have to have a vision. Otherwise, you don't know where you're going. There's no roadmap that you're following. You're just getting in a car and I'll just drive around till I find something I like. And that's what's happening. They don't teach vision. They don't teach values. They don't teach a mission. What is your mission? Now, these things should be taught in the home by the parents.
Yes.
But when parents don't have those things,
then get them from us.
You have to learn from others. And when we look at an education system, Dr. Biddle has created a system that has worked since 1984, folks. Now, when you go back and look at education in 1984 and see the negative impact, the negative that has come out of education since 1984, and then compare it to what Dr. Biddle has done, there is no comparison. It is that black and white comparison. And
right.
These are great things. And we have about 4.5 minutes left here, Dr. Biddle. And but I want you to talk number 8, and we'll have you back. Don't worry about that. To continue these conversations. Number 8 is character leadership class, educating students in the school community to understand, care about, and act on the 10 essential principles as well as other core values for self and others. Could you address that for a next couple of minutes, and then we need to wrap it up?
Sure, and I would say, as I know we skipped over 6, but it's celebrations, rituals, and ceremonies. Show me your celebrations. Show me your rituals. Show me your ceremonies. I'll show you your school. That's how I measure the effectiveness of a school for all stakeholders, period. The character piece, Conway became, and I was on the board to do this, it was called Character First, and I went to near Detroit and to a big conference and brought it back to not only our school, but our whole school system and our county and so forth. Character is who we are and who we become and who we help others become. It's about the servanthood piece, which is powerful.
Yeah, and Martin Luther King said, judge someone by their character, not by their skin color.
That's it. No question. He was so wrong. And now they're trashing Martin Luther King. I did things when I was at the University of South Carolina. We had major University 101 students and teachers at the Penn Center in the Beaufort area where Martin Luther King wrote that speech. Phenomenal. I love
that speech.
Environment. Oh my gosh, that's legendary for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then you look at the partnerships, the alumni, and the convocations. I stopped using the word conference. We don't do conferences anymore because a gathering of eagles is a convocation. I learned that in Phoenix before I was getting ready to speak to 2,000. I said, what a gathering of eagles is. I know there's a pride of lions and all this stuff. And I looked it up and it said a convocation. Oh my God, that's it. So I stopped, I don't know, 15 years ago. We do convocations. You know that. You spoke at one we put together down here. Yep. And by the way, You know what a gathering of baboons is? It's a congress.
Congress. Dr. Biddle, We are almost out of time. I want to close, and thank you for being on here today, and it's been super. I want to read a quote by Cicero to end the program today. That's quote, 6 mistakes mankind keeps making century after century. Believing that personal gain is made by crushing others. Worrying about things that cannot be changed or corrected. Insisting that a thing is impossible because we cannot accomplish it. Refusing to set aside trivial preferences. Neglecting development and refinement of the mind, which we talked about today. And last, attempting to compel others to believe and live as we do. And that, folks, is the Medlock Post radio show for today. May God bless America.